Put on your sand armor and power up into a Super Saiyan because Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is here and it is a whole lot of Raging Blast fun, pun intended. Now this game isn't perfect and lackluster reviewers like IGN will have you believe this game is in the same level as Concord, which is basically like comparing Piccolo to Yamcha. It has a little bit of room to grow. Regardless, it is the return of the loved Budokai Tenkaichi franchise that we all grew up with and we spent countless hours just spamming our Kamehamehas. Now with this game, you do have a few different game modes to take part in. There's your typical story mode, there's battles and tournaments, there's training, shops and customizations, different challenges you can complete, etc. This game also comes with a massive roster of over 180 characters. Now I understand some disappointment with some fan favorites missing from the roster, but let's be real here. The missing characters are not as popular as those in the base game, and come on, over 180 characters, that's quite a lot without having to pay for any DLC. Yes, there is a $35 season pass with the first set containing characters from Dragon Ball Super Superhero, so some of your missing characters might be on its way eventually. Now I want to start with the game's story mode, which is called Episode Battle. Now this mode is very interesting in both a positive and negative way in my opinion. Rather than one massive story that cycles through various playable characters and retelling the same exact story over 9,000 times, the story gets broken up into individual characters that you can choose to play as for the story mode. These characters are Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, Piccolo, Frieza, and Goku Black for some reason. Since the story is broken up this way, the story you choose will only have the fights that your chosen character was involved in. So what that means is the story will potentially jump throughout various parts and you won't be able to see different moments that happen in between these fights until you play as one of the other characters that may have been involved. So for example, when choosing Goku's story, you will essentially go from his fight against Raditz all the way straight to his fight against Nappa and then Vegeta and so on and so forth. What that means is in Goku's story, you won't see the fight play out between Nappa and his allies, you won't see the group battling the Ginyu Force on Namek, you will only see the fights that Goku was there for, and you might have to play as the other characters to experience those moments, and I felt that this caused the story to be a bit of a jumbled mess, not so much played out in order, but again, we've known this story and seen this story happen time and time again, so it's slightly excusable here. Now with the story, you will get these cutscenes that are mostly still images with text to read. There are some cutscenes with voice acting, and I wish the story mode had more of those rather than the still images, because essentially what the images does is it helps the story mode run by a bit quicker and not so much dragging on with the story, because Dragon Ball Z and in addition Dragon Ball Super are very long stories to play from beginning to end in one go. But it is due to these still images that I felt some important moments from the anime was a lot less exciting this time around and less iconic as it has been in previous games as well as in the anime, and I felt that a actual cutscene with voice acting would have made those moments perfect. One example that I have to share here is when Goku turns Super Saiyan against Frieza, you get that as a still image and not so much a full out cutscene, and honestly feels a bit disrespectful to those moments in the anime, especially that one iconic moment of Goku becoming Super Saiyan against Frieza. However, there are points in the story where you can have a different outcome that leads to a different story path that may continue back on track to the main story, or it might go off on its own path entirely before that branch eventually ends and then you have to go back to the main storyline to continue the story as is. It is a bit unclear what needs to happen to get these moments to happen and for the story to branch out this way, which is also known as a sparking episode when it happens. But when they do happen, it can drastically change the story in a very creative way, and really great unexpected things can happen in this type of sparking episode thing when these branches happen. Sometimes you can cause these branches to happen by an in-game choice you will be given, but other times you have to do something specific in the battle for it to branch off. One example is against the Raditz fight. If you beat him quickly enough, it will then branch off slightly to a different path. Another option is to defeat Frieza as Goku. One option is to use the Spirit Bomb, and one option is to not use the Spirit Bomb, and that will branch into a different way. Now, as an arena fighter, this game does differ from most fighting games, like the usual ones such as Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. Those games, essentially any character that you can play as is capable of beating another character on the roster as long as you are trained and know how to use that character effectively. However, just like the previous Budokai Tenkaichi games, it really does matter who you choose to play as, since characters like Krillin or Yamcha will most likely never be able to stand up against characters like, any of the Saiyans on the roster. Now, of course, you can add various boosts to your characters to help give them an edge, increase health, more damage, that kind of thing like in the previous games, but there is still that balancing mechanic here. Not so much of a broken mechanic or a mistake, as it is pretty much true to the anime and source material. If you choose a stronger character like a Super Saiyan God or even a Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, you're going to pretty much dominate any character on the roster such as Yamcha, Krillin, anyone in that weaker class level. There is an exception though, Yajirobe and Chaozu. Those two are pretty much beasts in this game, let me tell you. Now, when it comes to the controls, this game can be a bit tricky with that. The game does start off with a quick and basic tutorial that doesn't do much to teach you the mechanics of the game, which led to me having some difficulty winning fights. However, there is a pretty extensive training mode where you can learn various mechanics on how to fight, how to combo, how to defend against different types of attacks, just to name a few. In battles, you also have a very minimal HUD, which will of course have your health and your energy meter on the top corner, as well as a sparking meter that will fill up over time. This sparking meter is required to perform 2 out of your 4 special moves. These will include something basic like a solar flare or an after image, as well as some characters having the option to use this special attack to instantly go into a new sparking mode basically, which will allow you to perform a super attack that will not be available until you reach this new sparking mode. Now, for characters who don't have that power up to do it instantly, you of course can power up all the way to max, assuming you have at least 1 sparking meter available to do so. Some of your special attacks does also have the option to add a boost to it, which will let you move a bit quicker and do more damage to your opponent, given that you have enough energy to do so. It is a very cool and detailed fighting system, but I do wish that the button you use to power up was not the same button you need to activate your specials, because at times I did end up performing a special attack that I didn't mean to perform. And when it comes to moving around the battlefield, it can be a bit too fast and a bit hard to control. You and your opponent might also end up in a constant back and forth teleport move behind your opponent, behind one another, until one of you finally gets that hit and stops the teleporting altogether. You also might have issues controlling your flight and movement if you decide to charge against your opponent, because with this dash, you're moving too quickly, and if you don't know how to stop the dash, you're going to end up on the other side of the arena. And in tournament mode as well, you might end up getting a ring out when you don't intend to, or you might get a ring out because you didn't know how to properly fly away from that area to save yourself from the ring out. And when it comes to trying to block and defend, sometimes you will press the right button to defend against an opponent's combo, whether you're pressing the R1 or the circle button, and sometimes it just won't work. I don't know if this is based on your timing or if it has to do with a character's power level, but just know that when you're hitting the button to block a combo or get out of a combo, you might just end up being stuck there into that damage that you're going to receive. And if your opponent manages to teleport behind you and start a combo, you basically have to just sit there and take it. As far as I could tell, there was no way to get out of a combo being done on your back. If there is, someone needs to help me out, because I cannot get out of that in my own play sessions. I just couldn't do it. But when you do get these blocks and counters on time, it's really cool to see it happen, whether it's you dodging your opponent's attacks because you dodged it perfectly, or you do a really big counter to send your opponent flying away. It is pretty cool. Also, with some characters, if you perform a certain move like Goku doing a dragon throw on Frieza, you will see Frieza's face reaction to it, and it makes the scene a little bit different and a bit more cinematic, and that is attention to detail that I love in these types of games. Now, I did mention tournaments briefly earlier about your ring outs, and speaking of tournament mode, you have quite a few of them here you can play in with their own set of rules. There is of course your World Martial Arts Tournament with the standard rules and the ring out. You also have the Cell games where your final opponent will be Perfect Cell, who only managed to completely destroy me because your health meter for the most part doesn't carry over in the tournament mode, at least for the Cell games from what I noticed. You also have the Tournament of Power as an option, where you will create a team of 5 and you will battle against another team and keep doing that until you get to the last team to win the tournament. And apparently there's also one called the Yamcha games, which apparently everything goes, so that's pretty interesting. Of course, any character on the roster is allowed to be playable in these tournaments, and that includes the giant characters such as the Great Ape Vegeta that everyone seems to have a problem defeating, and yet I beat the guy on my second try while still being crappy with the game's controls, so not sure what's happening there, but I pummeled him on my second attempt. I'm just saying. Of course, with some characters, you also have the option to power up into a new form, whether it's a Saiyan going into Super Saiyan 2, 3, Red, Blue, etc., as well as some fusion options. I haven't done any fusion options yet, but it is basically the same concept of holding the up button on the D-pad and having enough energy to perform that transformation. But what needs to be said, however, is you can't just fuse any Goku with any Vegeta to create Gogeta or Vegito. You need the right characters from the right era of the saga to fuse together. For example, if you want Super Saiyan Blue Vegito, you have to use a Dragon Ball Super version of Goku with Super Saiyan Blue as an option, as well as a Dragon Ball Super Vegeta with Super Saiyan Blue as an option as well. Same thing for Dragon Ball Z Gogeta, or really the Janemba one. You need the Z version of Goku and Vegeta to be able to fuse together. You can't use Saiyan Saga Goku to fuse with Super Vegeta type of thing for that fusion, so just keep that in mind. You also have the option to create your own custom battle where you can use various images and text and different characters, create different stories and plots, and you are given a few tools to make this happen, as well as what you can do with your creativity, just like Mario Maker in a way, but not as fleshed out in my opinion. And with the custom battles, the only real requirement is to show that you can beat the battle yourself to the system, and that will allow you to upload it for people to download and play it themselves, because you have to be able to create a fight that you can defeat yourself so that others can do the same. You can't choose an impossible battle and upload it, it won't happen. There's also a shop and customization mode here where you can buy different characters and outfits by spending your in-game Zenny that you earn. And you can also customize different things, like apparently if you give Goku a power pole, it won't just be for the skin, it won't be just an aesthetic. You can actually use the power pole in some of his special moves that they managed to incorporate in the game, and that's pretty cool. Now unfortunately, we still don't have these options for the characters to wear these outfits, and we need it to happen. Like, by now, it needs to happen. Now you also have some challenges that you can complete that are given by both Whis and Grand Zeno, and this will unlock various awards such as more Zenny, characters, titles for your player card, and even Dragon Balls. I actually got a trophy for having, I believe, 1,000,000 Zenny, which happened very quickly after playing just a few matches in story mode and doing various things, so you'll get Zenny pretty quickly here. And yes, I did say you can get Dragon Balls, and like previous games in the franchise, you can summon an Eternal Dragon. And here you have the option to summon Shenron, Purunga, or even Super Shenron to grant some wishes. It depends on which Dragon Balls you earn, and there's various tasks that you need to complete to earn each individual set. Now of course, Shenron will unfortunately only grant you 1 wish, whereas Purunga will grant you 3 wishes, and then Super Shenron I believe will grant all the wishes on screen available. I haven't summoned Super Shenron or Purunga, as trying to earn these Dragon Balls through the challenges will be a bit of a grind just to get all 21 of them. Now of course, there are different guides on YouTube you can follow to make the process a bit quicker, so you have that option if you want to. Now along with everything provided here, the game just looks and sounds amazing. Even when I played on my iPad using Remote Play, the game ran very smoothly and beautifully, which is impressive given that my iPad mini struggles to play Remote Play in general. The game won't really stutter or slow down at all. It is a visual masterpiece in my opinion.
Art of War. The Turtle Hermit School will be with you, always. You'll be my greatest, most powerful.
Now yes, sometimes controls are a bit wonky, and depending on what you're doing, you might end up having some issues with combat and the controls. The story mode is a bit of a chop up and cut short in my opinion. Things are just kind of misplaced and not really told in order, and they do slap this really big tag of copyright and ownership on all the clips and screenshots that you would take with your console. But The game just has great fighting, great explosive battles, explosive techniques, a really interesting option to make the story go in a different branch and experience a whole new different plot and story, which is pretty impressive and creative. You have this master roster of your favorites. You can create your own battles. You can explore this really extensive training mode so you can become a better fighter, a better competitor, whether you play offline or online. Just don't play in split screen because you'll be locked into the hyperbolic time chamber, as that's the only map available for split screen. We hope it'll be changed with an update, but it may not happen. But despite all that, I feel there's much more positives to the game, and it is well worth your money, especially if you're a Dragon Ball Z fan. And I cannot wait to see what happens with the season pass, if there's going to be content that I want to buy myself, or if I'm just not going to buy the season pass altogether. But I'm really happy with this game. It brings back so many childhood memories, and it's just a hell of a fun time in my opinion. So that's kind of my review for Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, and I want to thank everyone who has subbed to my channel and supported my channel as we finally passed 1,000 subscribers. And I could not be any more excited than I am now, and we're going to continue on our road to the next milestone, 2,000 subscribers. And if you haven't subscribed yet,
now you'll pay. You vile, pill-sucking maggots will rue the day you cross my path! Prepare yourselves to embrace oblivion!